Every day, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency asks local sheriffs to detain inmates in the sheriff's custody, yet ICE fails to provide justification and the legal authority to do so. Without the appropriate legal authority to detain someone, sheriffs risk enormous legal liability. The burden of the failed federal immigration policy has flowed downhill to the sheriffs, state, and local law enforcement. The public has a right to know how the federal government's failure to detain potentially dangerous illegal immigrants impacts Cape Cod and the entire nation. I call on the administration to use the power of the executive order, as it has done many times before, to require the Department of Homeland Security and ICE to detain any illegal immigrant charged with crime which endangers public safety, share information more effectively with state and local law enforcement, broaden the eligibility categories for deportation, increase reimbursement levels for state and local agencies that house criminal aliens on behalf of the federal government. I express my support and endorsement of legislation filed by Senator Jeff Sessions, Republican from Alabama. The legislation is named after Sacramento County Sheriff Deputy Dan Oliver and Placer County Detective Michael Davis, who were gunned down in the line of duty by a twice deported illegal alien. I have endorsed this legislation as it will ensure cooperation between state, local, and federal officials. The legislation will empower our immigration and customs enforcement officers to actually enforce our immigration laws, which will protect American jobs and the public safety of the American people. Here in Barnstable, we have an inmate in custody behind me right now who is charged with assault and battery with a dangerous weapon and child pornography. He's being held on $10,000 bail. If someone walked in this front door now with this $10,000, I would have no choice but to let him go because ICE has not stepped up and put a detainer on him. If this individual is released here because he gets bailed, it's going to come back on the sheriff. Who's the one who released him? It's going to be the sheriff, even though without the proper paperwork from the federal government in a detainer, there's not much we can do. So this is a problem that has to be solved, and I think that the immigration laws have to be worked out and corrected and enforced. And I think that Senator Sessions' legislation will do this. No, I think it's a policy problem. They've changed their policy. They've stepped away from secure communities to a new policy that just isn't working. It seems like they put more effort into not keeping people rather than keeping them. Now there's only a specific category of crimes that they'll seek a detainer for. In my opinion, if someone is here illegally and they get arrested for committing a crime when they're here illegally, I mean, that certainly be enough to send them back from where they came from. And again, I want to emphasize, we're talking about people who have committed criminal offense. We're not talking about the landscapers and restaurant workers and folks like that you hear about all the time. These are people who are in this country illegally to begin with, and then while they're here, they commit a crime.
Sure. My opinion would essentially echo Sheriff Cummings. I'm here today in support of my brother sheriff and colleague and friend, and I agree with him on all of the policy issues that he's outlined here. Before I picked up on something that you had said, your question was, do we think it's a liberal policy? I wouldn't characterize it necessarily as liberal. It's a lax policy or a lack of policy. What the stated policy is would probably be acceptable if the ICE agents locally and ICE itself were able to enforce those policies. But we're seeing that those officers in the field don't seem to have the will or the authority to do that. What we're calling upon ICE to do is to do their jobs. To back our play. The sheriff mentioned that we do hold immigration detainees in Plymouth, and we do. And our populations, just so you're aware, now these are criminal aliens, not just here illegally, but here committing crimes. Our population has gone from 350 a year and a half or so ago down to 50 as we stand here today. So that's 300 detainees, criminal detainees, that have gone somewhere. And I suggest, they've gone into the communities. They haven't gone back to their home countries. So this is a problem. It's a problem at the top, and that's where we need to fix it.
It's a public safety issue. We have an obligation to keep our communities safe, and I can't fulfill that obligation if I'm forced to allow, a child pornographer back into my community. And that's what our concern is.